All right. Hello there. Welcome to our live monthly broadcast. I'm Carly Seifert, the creator of Busy Moms Do Piano and Busy Kids Do Piano. And I am on here live today to talk about scheduling piano practices, why, and how to do it. I would love to hear from you confirmation that you can hear me, because I've been known to start these without getting the microphone hooked up correctly. So if you're on live and can just let me know, yes, Carly, I can hear you, that would be great. I am joining you live today from Georgia, our new home. The last time I did one of these, we were in the middle of packing up our house in Montana. So now I'm here on the other side in Georgia. We're unpacked mostly, still got a little ways to go. And we actually have a snow day here in Georgia, which my kids find kind of hilarious because it's like an inch of snow. But it's legit because we could not get out of our subdivision this morning. It's so hilly here, and there's no snow plows or salt machines or anything that help you get out of the ice and snow here. So my kids are home from school. We have a sunny but a little bit of snow today here in Georgia. And I'm here today to talk to you about scheduling piano practices, why and how to do it. So I do these monthly live casts for anyone who wants to join in, but I let the topics sort of be informed by my students inside my programs and inside our private Facebook group. This was a topic that had been coming up for some people that they wanted to know a little bit more about. And so that's why we thought this would be a good one to talk about. And I will kind of let you know, another topic that came up was motivating students to practice. And so that's definitely something I'll be addressing a little bit in here, but I feel like that's worthy of a whole other live cast because we can get really deep with that. So we're going to talk more about that in depth in our February live cast. So here we're going to focus mostly on how to set up a piano practice, how to schedule it, and why you should schedule it. So let's go ahead and dive right in. As we are live, so you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, share your own observations, just say hi, let me know where you're watching from. That's always fun to see where everyone is joining us from. So the first reason that I think it's important to schedule piano practices, and I'll kind of preface this by saying I have a lot of students who through the years have made comments like, well, I don't want my child to feel pressured to practice, or I want my child to love piano so much that they're just going to run to the piano and practice whenever they want, and I don't have to remind them. Or parents who don't really schedule practices, but they'll just say, okay, let's practice piano. We've got some time here. Let's hop on the piano and practice. And I think that's noble to want your child to love piano practice so much that they're just going to practice and you're not going to have to set up the structure for it. And that may be the case for a little while, maybe when you first start piano lessons, your child's super enthusiastic about it, but it's not typical. Typically, you're going to have to provide structure for your child to practice piano. That's just kind of how it goes. And so that's why I wanted to dive into this topic a little bit more too. So the reason that it's important to have piano practices in your schedule is it becomes routine. And we all know, we can probably see in our own lives that routine is really beneficial. If I schedule my exercise at a certain time each day and it becomes part of my routine, I'm more likely to do it. We know that our kids thrive with routine, right? I know we have lots of homeschool families that have a homeschool routine, certain times of the day where they do certain subjects. If you send your child to public or private school, they probably have a routine. I know my kids do. They have lunch at certain times each day, all of that. And they kind of just know what to expect. And they get used to that routine. And so an added benefit of that becoming routine is that it becomes non-negotiable. If your student is learning that, okay, it's expected of me to practice piano at this time every day, you're less likely, I mean, you might still hear some whines, but you're less likely to hear this, oh no, let's do this instead, or mom, I want to do this, or just have that fight because they know that that is what is expected of them. They know that this is their practicing time, and the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. You're just building in that routine and hopefully being met with less resistance as time goes on. So that's a huge bonus to scheduling piano practices, in my opinion. So what I want you to do as you begin to set up the structure for this piano practice routine is to start by taking a look at your current schedule, okay? And the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but as you take a look at your current schedule, and I have a colleague of mine, a piano teacher, who actually has her families write out their current schedule, their school hours, their after school activities, any meetings or anything they have, so they just have it all laid out in front of them. The first thing I want you to do as you take a look at that schedule is to schedule 1 or 2 days off of piano practice. And I know that's going to sound crazy, but the reason I want you to do that is because I like to set myself up with sort of realistic expectations here. And I think if we sort of go into it and have these very noble goals that we're going to practice every single day, but we aren't allowing ourselves to be realistic, we kind of set ourselves up for failure, and it can be discouraging. So as you look over your schedule, if you notice that, wow, Mondays are insane. We've got school, we've got sports practices, that tends to be a lot of homework for our kids on Mondays, that type of thing. Give yourself permission to not schedule piano practice for that day. Okay, just take it off the table. And then maybe there's another day during the week that you just know it's not going to fit in. And that's okay. Set yourself up for success. Schedule those days off. From there, you can actually go into looking at what times are going to work for piano practice. And I think just by being realistic and allowing yourself that time off, you're more likely to not punish yourself and not kind of go down the rabbit hole of getting discouraged when you miss a day of piano practice. As far as what times are going to be good for scheduling that piano practice, I want you to really follow your students' lead for when it comes to best times. So you might think that the best time is as soon as your child gets home from school. They're going to practice piano and then you're done with it. But that might actually be a really difficult time for your child. Your child might need to have a snack and wind down and have some outdoor time before they're really in a good position to practice the piano. And so I want you to watch your child's cues at different times of day. If you notice your child is really fatigued and getting exhausted and being really kind of whiny at the piano, that may be less because of what they're doing during practice and more just because of the time of day. So let me just give you some kind of ideas for setting this up. When we lived in Montana, we lived super close to school, and our mornings were pretty relaxed. They weren't rushed. My kids didn't have to get the bus. We could leave 2 minutes before school and get there on time. We were like down the street from school. So actually practicing piano in the morning ended up being a really great time. My daughter was fresh. She was ready to learn. Sitting down and practicing piano was not a big deal. And it was just something that became part of our morning routine. Now, where we live in Georgia, school starts a little bit earlier. We have a little bit more of a drive. And so practicing piano in the morning would just make everything crazy and harried. And so we've kind of been finding our routine as we get settled here and finding that after dinner is a really good time to practice piano. Our kids have had time to kind of relax, decompress, play with friends, and dad's home so he can entertain little brother, and I can sit at the piano and practice with my daughter. So that ends up being a really good time for us. So you'll want to kind of follow your child's lead and figure out when your child's going to be at his or her best for learning to know when a good time to practice is. I'm now going to give you a tip that might seem to be a little bit controversial because it might be different than what you've been doing, or maybe even than how you learned to play piano if you were a student once upon a time. And that is to not require a specific length of time for piano practices. So a lot of teachers will say you need to practice 30 minutes a day or 45 minutes a day, or give you this specific length of time. And I know many well-intentioned parents will do that too. They'll require a specific amount of time for practicing piano. My own mom set a timer for practicing piano. And the reason I don't encourage that, the reason I don't like those specific lengths of time is because I think that it's going to vary so much, and every child is so different, and depending on your own kiddo's age, developmental abilities, just how that week is going, the time's going to be different. So for example, my daughter started piano around 4 years old. And as any 4-year-old does, she had a super short attention span and would get wiggly and antsy at the piano, and we couldn't stay at the piano bench for more than a few minutes. Gradually, we worked up to a longer practice time. When she became like 5, we suddenly worked up to 10 minutes of practice. Sometimes she was still wiggly and antsy, and we couldn't practice that long. Now she's older and she can sit at the piano for a longer period of time and focus and work at the piano bench for a longer period of time, just because she's older and her focus level's there. But that's not going to be the case for every kid at different ages. So I think if you have this expectation, like we're going to practice for 10 minutes or we're going to practice for 20 minutes, that can be really confusing and difficult for your child. I think just setting up a few goals, when they are not timed, they do even practice longer. Good point, TC. TC said when they're not timed, they do even practice longer. And that is very true, that sometimes your child will just be working to kind of meet the beeper going off, to just do whatever they can until that timer goes off because they're trying to fill the minutes by. But if you just sort of give them the freedom to work through goals, no matter how long that takes, it's not about the time anymore. It becomes about reaching those goals. And so I think the time becomes better spent. And you'll also find that your kiddo will be less resentful and resistant about practicing if they're not sort of expected to do beyond what they can. So for example, my brother, super wiggly and wild child, and was required to practice a half hour a day. And he would go sit at the piano bench and just play one song for over and over as fast as he could for 30 minutes. So he was not getting the most out of his piano practicing time. It would have been better for him if he'd had an adult sitting there with him, going over a couple of things for him to practice. Even if he just spent 10 minutes, that would have been more beneficial to him than a 30-minute practice. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but what I want to kind of stress is just that it's important for you to provide the structure for your child to practice, right? To schedule that time in your day for your child to practice. But then I'm going to encourage you not to require a certain amount of minutes, to just, be a partner with your child in practice, kind of watch them for cues that it's maybe time to wind up the practice and on a positive note, and have that be the end of piano practice. So we're providing the structure, but we're not requiring a specific length of time. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to add your questions or comments below. And then the other thing I wanted to say as we wrap up here is to allow time after practice for rewards. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to dive more into motivating kids to practice for our February live cast, because I feel like that's such an important topic and deserves its own live cast. But I just wanted to talk briefly about that if we're providing structure for our kids to practice the piano, and then if we're just going from that to the next activity, I think it's important to kind of allow kids to feel rewarded for their practice. And what that looks like is totally up to you. So I have some students, they have a checklist. And so taking the time afterwards to check things off on that checklist, that's a reward. That's like their kiddos gets excited about having completed the checklist. Or maybe it's a sticker. You put stickers on a chart or something when you're done practicing. I've seen lots of parents share their sticker charts that they have on the wall for practicing the piano, and that can be a reward. For my kids, they like to, I always promise, you may take or leave this idea if you're totally opposed to candy, but I give my son, especially, is highly motivated practicing his trombone for a jelly bean. So after trombone practicing time, I have to make sure we're not just rushing off to the next thing, that he gets that jelly bean as that reward. I know some parents, they do things like their child gets rewarded by time with the parent. So they'll get rewarded by time playing a board game or something like that. That can be really highly motivating to a child. My daughter in the summer, because she has to earn screen time, she gets 20 minutes of handheld Kindle time after she's done practicing piano. So I just have to make sure that when I'm scheduling in our piano practices, I'm making sure that she has time afterwards to implement the reward that she's earned. Basically, I have to make sure that she has time to practice the screen. Since she's practiced piano, she's earned that reward. So whatever reward looks like for you, whether it's candy or time doing something or a sticker, just make sure that you're including that as part of that structure in your piano practice. Okay, that's all I have prepared for you guys as I was kind of going over my notes to talk about piano practicing. But if you have questions, do feel free to ask them in the comments here. I'm happy to answer questions live. If you are watching this later and you have questions, feel free to ask them and I will write in the comments my answers to those questions. A couple of housekeeping things. We are opening up tomorrow for public enrollment. We just do this a few times a year where we allow anyone and everyone to enroll in online piano lessons for Busy Kids or Busy Moms Do Piano. So if you are someone who is on the wait list or have just been kind of watching the Facebook page waiting for public enrollment to open again, it will be tomorrow. Those links will be live and you'll be able to sign up. It's going to last through January 23rd. So you'll have until January 23rd to enroll in the online piano programs. Or if you're one of my students and you maybe have a friend or family member who's been waiting, you can let them know tomorrow through January 23rd is the time period for public enrollment. Let's see, I don't see any questions popping up. So hopefully that means that we did a good thorough job of covering everything in the live cast here. But do feel free to ask any questions you might have about scheduling piano practices. And then again, next month for our February topic, we're going to dive really deep into motivating your kiddo to practice. We're going to talk about natural ways to do that. And we're going to talk about different reward systems and ideas for that. So hopefully you can join us for our February live cast. We'll be announcing the date soon, but it'll probably be in early February. I'm not seeing any questions pop up, so I guess I will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you to all of you who joined me live to talk about this and contribute your own thoughts and experiences as well. I will be on probably over the weekend, just hopping on to do some live Q&A for those of you who are maybe considering joining the piano program that have questions about Busy Kids Do Piano or Busy Moms Do Piano. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably hop on over the weekend or early next week to answer any questions that you might have about the online programs. All right. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a fantastic rest of your day. To my fellow Southerners and East Coasters, I hope you enjoy your snow day. I hope your kids aren't going stir crazy like mine are. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.